Joining me today is the original king of interviewing, a friend, a mentor, a living legend, and a man who loves a good Brooklyn water bagel, Larry King. Welcome to the Rubin Report.
You know, whenever I hear legend, I think one thing: old.
Well, every time we've sat down, I feel that I have to say living legend at the beginning because you are. I hate to tell you, but you are.
One of the best compliments I ever got was Derek Jeter, great Yankee, now owner of the Marlins, came over to me at the All-Star game some years ago and said, he said, there are a lot of phony legends. You're a true legend.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that warmed my heart.
And that's coming from a legend, because that guy's a true baseball legend too. Did you ever think that after all your years in radio, in cable news, now doing the digital thing, that you'd be sitting in a garage being interviewed like this, going out to hundreds of thousands and millions of people?
Let me tell you the truth, Rubin. This is the pinnacle of my career. If you'd have told me 61 years ago when I started, 61 years from today, you'll be known around the world, you'll be called an icon, a living legend, and at the height of your career, you'll be in a garage with David Rubin. It's come full circle.
It's come full circle. You're killing me, Larry.
Happy to be here, David.
But what does that say about just how everything has changed? I mean...
Oh, the only thing sure is change. The only thing constant is change. When I started in radio, we had landlines, went through a phone line. I started in radio, did local television 1 year after I started. Always did both. Always regarded both equally. I always thought of television as radio with pictures. Yeah. We could be on the radio now.
Yeah, but we release this as an audio podcast.
I know, but they don't have to see it.
Yeah.
We could imagine any radio's theater of the mind, but I always took it as just communicating. So I started in radio, then did local television, then did national radio and satellites. I was there when satellites were introduced. I never forgot it. I'm in Washington, the guest is in LA, and it feels like he's right there.
Yeah.
Right there. It was amazing. And I said, satellites, that's the end. That completes it. And then Ted Turner hired me, go to CNN, and I'm seen around the world. We go up 23,000 miles to go next door and to Moscow. Try to explain that to Jefferson. Now I'm doing that, and now after almost 26 years at CNN, 61 years in the business, I thought I could retire. Carlos Slim came along, he said, we got to do something. So the internet or a TV, Hulu, who knew from this?
Yeah.
And when you tell me about the internet, what bugs me is, where the hell is it? Where is the internet? And people talk about the internet, and even though...
You just have to accept it, my friend.
Correct. I'm a product of all these things, but basically, David,
yeah, I
am doing exactly what I did 61 years ago. What we're doing right now is no different.
Yeah.
We're being delivered differently, but what we're doing is no different.
What does that say about this? The ability to sit across from somebody, look them in the eye, and actually try to understand the human experience. Because I was saying to you in the green room right before, there is a massive renaissance right now because of podcasts about long-form conversation, the thing that you've been doing for 60 some odd years.
But that's where it's happening, in podcasts.
Yeah.
It's not happening on television, not even on cable television. They used to call, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox news channels. They're not news channels. They are Trump channels. One's pro-Trump, one's anti-Trump, one's sometimes hate Trump, and there's pundits.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours a day of punditry. They do not cover the news. When the hurricane was hitting Carolina, it was in a box on the corner of the screen while they were talking about Trump. You saw where the hurricane was. That's not news.
Do you remember seeing a change on that? Because you were at CNN, do you remember what year you started at CNN?
I started, of course you remember, 1985 and left in 2010.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing something changing in the way cable news reported and the way
I saw it when the other side started. We owned it for a while, CNN.
Yeah.
And then it was MSNBC and then Fox. And we thought they were little invaders. Ted Turner was a genius, an off-the-pants genius, off the seat of the pants. He was driving in a car one day, and the guy said, all news all the time. He said, why couldn't that work on television? Then he puts it up on the big bird. Look what he is the revolutionary leader of the second half of the 20th century. Changed the world. And look where it's come to now, the internet, now you're everywhere. You know the difference? There's good and bad to it. If something happened in the world right now, David, everyone knows it in a minute. In a minute, the world knows it. Wow.
Yeah.
What do we do with this? And technology is always ahead of the human advance. So when technology is ahead, it's how do we grasp using this? It's a great power. I interviewed Steve Jobs when he started Apple. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if he were here today, if he would know what an impact that's had in the world. Because I've had experts tell me that your iPhone will control your life.
It basically is controlling our lives right now. This is a perfect segue, my friend. Can you bust out your phone?
I do not have an iPhone because I don't want to be. I was addicted to tobacco from age 17 to age 53 when I had a heart attack. I know what addiction is. I would wake up in the morning and grab the cigarette before I put my glasses on, anything. I see people, my wife, friends, with their cell phones. I have dinner with a friend I never talked to. We sit at dinner and I'm eating and he's, I think they get thumb cancer. So I have
old school
a flip phone. See this phone?
Yeah.
It's a phone. Put it to your ear, you hear the other side. I don't text. I hear people, they call me, I call them. Normal.
You're the only person that I actually call. You do realize that. I don't call anybody.
You just text.
I text.
Now, why you? See, this hurts me.
Yeah.
You as a broadcaster, as a communicator.
Yeah.
Why do you text? All right, I can see an emergency. I'm stuck. I'll be late.
Yeah.
But come on.
Sometimes
speak to people.
Well, look, you know this is what I love to do. But sometimes just for the sake of ease, of just, you know, I'm going to be here then, or I'll see you there. You know, a lot of that. I try not to have long-form discussions about political issues. But yeah, people are fighting over personal things on there and all of that. But wait, I want to back up to something you said before, because so when the satellites started, and then you suddenly were doing interviews with people where you weren't in the same room, do you remember that affecting the interview in any way? Because I always like this. I don't like doing
there's nothing like that. Nothing beats this.
Yeah.
Nothing. However, I always try to treat it as this, they just weren't there. So I try to make eye contact via the satellite. I try to treat it as if they were there. And what I got used to handling well and enjoyed was when I'd have 5 different guests in 5 different places and controlling that.
Yeah.
And then I did diplomacy. I had a night where we had Arafat, Rubin, and the King of Jordan.
Yeah, King Abdullah.
Not Abdullah, his father.
Okay.
All 3. Kissinger told me, you're doing diplomacy. Huh. I had Arafat, King of Jordan, and the Prime Minister of Israel. Together, me, a little Jewish kid from Brooklyn, sitting there by satellite, but I felt I was with them.
Yeah.
I didn't treat it as them being there. I treated it as like this.
Yeah. Did you, in some of the bigger interviews that you did over the years, I mean, you've truly interviewed everybody. Is there anyone that you felt like you didn't get to?
Yeah, Castro. I went down to Cuba in 2009. I was treated regally. They all were wonderful to me, but I couldn't nail it. Couldn't get them to do. I was fascinated by him because he led his country longer than any leader in memory. Somebody had to like him.
Right, even if it was only one person.
And then when I went to Havana, I never saw a happier country. I was amazed. The people, smiling, musical, hotels mobbed, you know, from Canadians and Germans, and beautiful weather, a beautiful city. Havana ought to be open to everybody. It's beautiful. The waters are gorgeous. It's a great city.
How aware were you when you're interviewing big timers, the real movers and shakers, the Rubins and Arafats that you mentioned, that something that you ask them could actually turn the course of history?
Yeah, I'm not aware. I know a lot of it did. I know the Perot-Gore debate changed NAFTA. Clinton called me up the next day and said, "You passed NAFTA." That was way behind until the Gore-Perot debate. You try not to realize it, but once the light goes on, that's just the moment I'm in. In other words, if I'm sitting with Jimmy Carter or a ballet dancer, once the light goes on, I'm in that moment. I don't think about yesterday, can't do anything about it. Don't think about tomorrow, that's tomorrow. So I'm in the now. So I'm right in this now. You should be in this now. So if you've got Trump coming tomorrow and you're thinking about that, then you're losing this moment.
I'm here.
So I always I focused.
Do you think that your curiosity, do you think you sort of made that for yourself, or was it built into you? Because I've been out with you to lunch or to dinner, breakfast, whatever it is, and I can see you're as curious about the waiter or the busboy, or sometime when we were at Aura together, and you'd be chatting with, the guy doing the lights or whatever, that you were actually as interested in them as if
I've always had that, David. I remember as a kid getting on a bus, and asking the bus driver, "Why do you want to drive a bus?" I remember we'd go to ball games. Kid in Brooklyn, go to Dodger games, go with my friends. We'd wait outside for the players. They wanted autographs. I never wanted an autograph. I wanted to ask questions. I would run along with a player, go into his car. Why did you bunt? Why did you do that? I was always a why person.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person you don't want to sit next to on an airplane. And I don't know where that came from, but it's the best gift I got, was the gift of curiosity. Anthony Quinn told me that. You have the greatest gift ever, curiosity. My friend Herbie Cohen, who wrote You Can Negotiate Anything, says to me, the secret of my success is being stupid. He didn't mean that demeaning. Basically, what you're doing is saying, help me. Help me with this. Why'd you do that? Someone asked me, if you had interviewed Osama bin Laden, what would your first question have been? Well, it would not have been, why did you bomb the World Trade Center? It would have been, you grew up in one of the richest families in Saudi Arabia. Why'd you leave? Now, he probably hadn't thought of that since he left.
Yeah.
But it forces you to think. And then I'm going to learn more about him before I learn about the bombing. And also you have to understand that nobody thinks they're evil. Hitler did not comb his hair in the morning and say, I am a bad person. They may be crazy, but they believe. Nobody thinks, boy, I'm really terrible. And everyone has an excuse for what they do. The bank robber. That bank, boy, my father, they charged his checking account to screw them.
Yeah.
And the public, funny enough, admires the renegade. Dillinger was very popular in America. Very popular. He robbed from banks. Who likes banks?
Right. So how do you then interview a bad dude, someone that's got...
You're curious. You're curious about a bad dude.
Yeah.
I try not to. It's hard sometimes. Racists especially.
Yeah.
I had a tough time doing the early George Wallace. Mm-hmm. The later George Wallace was terrific. The early George Wallace, I had a tough time. Because I don't understand racism. I've never understood it.
Yeah.
I have no understanding of why someone with a different pigment, that's all it is, should be treated differently.
You think that comes from just growing up in Brooklyn in the 30s when it was such a mix? Can you just talk about that a little bit, like what that was like growing up?
Oh, I grew up in a neighborhood of mixed, with Jews, Protestants, Catholics. That's it, with some blacks, not a lot, but blacks went to school with us. When I went down to Miami to break into radio, I was 23. And I got off the train, and the first thing I saw were 2 water fountains, colored white. I drank out of the colored.
Yeah?
I'd never seen anything like that. You grew up in Brooklyn, that was beyond me. Then I got on a bus to go over to Miami Beach to stay with my uncle. And the bus driver stops the bus and asks me to move forward because the back is for blacks.
Wow.
And I said to him, my father's black. I'll stay in the back. So I never understood it. I've asked this of racists. I have never understood why a white feels superior to a black. Lenny Bruce, who was a great friend of mine, used to tell me that the human being has to have something to hate. That drives them because they have an inferiority complex. So they have to feel superior to something. And he told me 40 years ago, someday blacks will get equal rights and we'll have to hate something. I'll tell you what we'll hate. Eskimos. Eskimos.
There's always another, right?
In other words, you know, you used to check in a hotel and underneath the chair would be a sign, remove under penalty of law. Mm-hmm. You know who removes them? Eskimos.
They hate those things.
You know any Eskimo war heroes? Yeah, you don't know. Name one.
I can't. I'm gonna have to Google. I'm gonna Google that on my iPhone.
Got an Eskimo doctor? No, but they would look for things.
Right. They would just try to find something.
And racism always befuddled me. I interviewed Dean Rusk, Secretary of State, Kennedy years, and he was a very progressive Southerner from Georgia. His daughter married a black man. He said, I have no prejudice. Dean Rusk. And he taught me a little about prejudice. So did Malcolm X. Dean Rusk said to me, my daughter married a black man, I have black grandchildren. I have no prejudice. I got on a commercial plane. The pilot was black, and for a minute I was nervous. That shows you how inbred it can be.
Yeah.
Can he fly the plane? But it boggles me.
When over the years, when you've talked to some of these people, you know, white supremacists or just some of these people that come from that truly racist place, did you ever hear them say anything? Was it almost like therapy in a way that you felt if you talked to them long enough, maybe they could get out of it? Did you ever sense that was part of it?
You try the best you can. Now there's some books out by former white supremacists who come full circle. Of course, they're raised, a lot to do with raising their major inferiority complex. You got to deal with that. Although someone said it's not a complex, they're inferior.
Who were some of the people that you interviewed that you think either it went the wrong way or any regrets in never sitting down with someone and go, oh man, I missed that moment?
Oh, I could tell you one. Yeah. It's the one, I'm trying to remember his name now. It's the guy who succeeded Steve Jobs.
The one immediate, well, Tim Cook now, but it's not
No,
Tim,
this was
Tim
before.
Cook. Yeah.
Steve Jobs hired him. Oh, what was his name? Bright guy, came from Pepsi-Cola, I think.
I'll have my guys Google it while
And he ran. And I had him on for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Great guest. An hour and questions.
Was it Wozniak? Is that
what?
Was it
no,
Steve?
Wozniak was his partner.
Okay.
No, this guy, he joined the corporation, Steve left out, and came back later.
Okay, we'll grab it.
So I spent 2 hours interviewing this guy. He was great. All about it, previous jobs. And then I finish, and now I go to calls. I used to do this on my old radio show. Yep. 2-hour interview, an hour calls, and then open phone America. I go to calls, the first call, Larry. Steve Jobs fired him. He replaced Steve Jobs, and then Steve Jobs fired him. You didn't even ask about that. Should have known.
Yeah. It's tough when one gets by you, right?
And it haunts you. Look at it. As years ago, it still haunts me. You try to know everything. You can't. There's no perfect interview. You can't know everything. You do the best you can. I had a tough time with Ahmadinejad of Iran because he would, like, I remember he was talking to me.
John Scully, I think, is the guy.
Does it? Okay. John Scully.
See, we've got a crack team over here.
Yeah, you got it. He's still around, by the way. When I interviewed Ahmadinejad, and we're talking about various things, and we're talking about the Holocaust. And he says to me, that's why you always have to listen when you're doing an interview. He said, if there was a Holocaust, why isn't Israel in Poland? That's where the crime occurred. Why is the state of Israel 2,000 miles away? There was no crime in Palestine. The crime was in Poland or Germany. Why didn't they take that area and give it to Israel? Right? Mm-hmm. It made some sense. You could argue it logically.
Yeah.
I said to him, did you say if there was a Holocaust? And we went
right, just right there.
Are you saying if? Are you? No. Then we got contentious. You denying the Holocaust? It was. Those are interesting. But look, I've had so many years doing this, Dave, and I can't explain how I still love it. I love the interplay.
Yeah.
You should love what you do.
Yeah,
I
do.
You know why? You learn something every day. Every day you learn. So I can't be closed-minded. Like, I'm a liberal politically, certainly in social issues. But I'm not closed-minded enough to think that you can't have an opposing view. I like the argument. I like the discussion. But in interviewing, I leave my ego at the door. I try not to use the word I. It's irrelevant. And I tried to get into, walk in the other, Edward Bennett Williams, the great lawyer, told me once, I said, what is the role of the criminal defense lawyer? He said, to get one person on the jury to walk in your client's shoes. If you can get one person to walk in your client's shoes, you've got a hung jury. All he has to do is say, I would have done that.
Yeah. When you were doing 5 nights a week, and on any given, I use this example a lot, because people will say, oh, Dave, you had this, this bad person on, or this, that, the other thing. I'll say, in Larry King's heyday, let's go 1992 CNN, you'd have the cast of Friends on Monday, you'd have an O.J. Simpson lawyer on Tuesday, you'd have, an animal guy on Wednesday, you'd have, a doctor on Thursday, and then, former Secretary of State on Friday. Was that crazy for you to just bounce, or you just love the bouncing around?
All part of my curiosity. Yeah. Most of the times driving in, I didn't know I had on that night.
Really?
I still don't at Aura. I drive in, I don't know who's on. Unless it were really someone famous. Yeah. Like we might have the animal guy. I didn't know he was coming until I walk in and see all the animals. And because my curiosity comes from pure curiosity.
So were your guys handing you notes in front of you?
No. I'd get a blue card like you had I had a blue card with facts.
Yeah.
He was Secretary of State from this year to that year. He was responsible for the Marshall Plan, right? That's all. And then I would do the things that, how'd the Marshall Plan come about?
Yeah.
What part of it did you play with George Marshall? Was his plan? Were you in on the thinking? It's all, when we had the Gulf War, I would see other shows in which the guest would come on, be a general or something, and the host would say, today in the Gulf War, 1,000 people were killed, and and now the terrain is here. And all I would say is, what happened? What happened today? Because he has the perspective. If you have an interview where you turn the TV on and the host is on more than the guest, something's wrong. If it takes you 3 sentences to ask a question, something's wrong. Because a lot of them are show-offs. I'll give you the show-off interviewer. Ready? Yeah. My guest today is Dave Rubin. He's written a new book called Chicago, My Hometown. Been great to have you here, Dave. I visited Chicago many times. Always loved going there. Do you write about the stockyard? Yeah. Stockyards are fascinating. If you ever go there, folks, in other words, you are a prop for me. And that's gone now. There aren't even those shows anymore.
Yeah. What do you make of, so when you left CNN, I've said this to you before, you left in 2010. It seems to me you can do a pretty clean line between you leaving CNN, obviously the Piers Morgan thing didn't work out, if you want to comment on that you can, but that you were one of the people that people trusted. there's almost no one in news or on television anymore that people go, oh, like no one was walking around, well, even the people that maybe didn't like you that much, they were going, Larry King's a bad dude, Larry King's a liar, you know what I mean? Nobody was doing that.
No,
and that by having one of the main faces who had been there for so long, I really think it broke something in the continuity of CNN that kind of led us to where we are now related to all of cable news.
Maybe it did. There were signs, you know, Fox News was beating us. We had won it all those years, and Fox News was beating us, beating CNN in the day, beating us at night. That was a sign. This was a network that's not news.
But am I making this up? When you left CNN, you still had the highest rated show on the network.
Second highest. We started to fall. Not precipitously, but we started to fall. CNN saw it coming because they saw the inroads. CNN always made a ton of money because they were the first. And everybody in America who had CNN paid 50 cents a month. So Ted Turner got in on a genius. Think of this. Right now, you and I are paying for CNN. We're not watching it. You don't pay for CBS. You're paying for CNN. He knew it. So CNN made money if they had no commercials, but didn't do anything, just be on. Public tuned in. It's a different world now. I don't, maybe it was the cleavage, you know. Jerry Seinfeld said, my old column I used to do in USA Today, when I did It's My 2 cents,
yeah.
That was the beginning of Twitter.
Yeah, really
just
was.
Quick comments. But I, you know, people call me a pioneer and stuff. All I see myself is, I'm a lucky Jewish kid from Brooklyn who was curious and took that curiosity into a career.
Yeah.
In other words, I was able to take the natural curiosity and make a career of it.
You think we're maybe running out of that? When you talk to young people, you have two very young sons, when you talk to young people, watch how they get the news, you were telling me about kids with the phones and everything, and you love the newspaper, right? You are...
My New York Times. I got an iPhone. They gave me an iPhone, so I use it to get baseball scores.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't have it with me.
Yeah.
I don't need it. The games are tonight.
You go, right? You're a major, still a Dodger fan.
Oh yeah,
life,
I
right?
love the game. I go to basketball. I love the game. I love competition.
You had your 80th at Dodger Stadium, right?
Yeah. I tell you why I love sports. Sports is the one. If you're not a sports fan, are you?
Oh yeah, I'm a big sports fan. Yeah.
Okay. The best thing about being a sports fan is it's the one thing in your life when you get up in the morning, you don't know who's going to win. So you have something to look forward to. Good or bad, you don't know who's going to win. Nobody wakes up with that, except sports fans. Another thing, what I love about athletes, maybe more than any profession, their career is over when other careers are beginning. Mm-hmm. They have that day when the cheering stops. Imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
You build yourself up and you're 37 years old. They paid you all this money for doing what you did as a kid. And another thing the athlete has that we don't have, final score. Can't argue.
That's it.
8-7, you lost. You got 7, they got 8. You can say, yeah, but they should. Stop. You got 7, they got 8. Now, if you got 8, you get the applause. Get the down, you get that every day. Recognition, non-recognition. Walk down the street, athletes. So I love all, it brings all my curiosity. Sports bring it to a head because I'm always interested in. Last night the Dodgers lost. He left a left-hander in to pitch to his right-handed batter. He's got all those pitches in the dugout. Why did he leave him in? Why did he leave him in?
Did you find there was something unique about the top-of-the-line athletes that you would talk to, that they genuinely had something different?
You know what they had?
Some of the other guys didn't have?
Confidence.
Yeah, that's it.
Stan Musial, the great Cardinal outfielder. Wally Westlake was a teammate of his. And Wally told me this story. They're sitting in a dugout before a game, and Westlake goes over to Musial and says, Stan, I got up this morning. Breakfast was great. The shower was great. The drive-in was great, and in batting practice, I've hit 5 home runs. I feel great. You ever have that kind of day, Stan? And he said, every day.
That's as good as it gets.
The quarterback who throws 10 incomplete passes never thinks about the 11th throw to have the 10 incomplete affect him. Confidence. They have that ability. You take wide receivers in football, they're all fast. They all have good hands. The great ones, they believe it's coming. Gretzky told me he saw the puck go into the goal before it went into the goal. So I have great appreciation. I also have appreciation for politicians. They do something we don't do. They have a first Tuesday in November. We don't have that day. We don't have a first Tuesday in November. They win and lose. They stand up before the public, and they win and lose. They get rejected. Jimmy Carter telling me the saddest day of his life was flying home from his last appearance when his advisors told him, you know, they know in the afternoon,
yeah,
you're going to lose. The great story that Barbara Bush told me, when George Bush lost to Bill Clinton, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they knew he was going to lose. And they were all sitting around Samba, and Barbara Bush came in and said, where do we get a driver's license?